Hi everyone, how's it going? So recently I've been reading along with the Costa Book Awards, and one of the reasons I enjoy following that prize is because it awards not just novels, which are mainly what I read, but also nonfiction and poetry, so it sort of forces me to read outside my comfort zone. And another book prize that does that is the Dylan Thomas Prize, and they just recently announced their long list of books, so I thought I would talk through the long list because a number of these books are ones that I've been wanting to get to, so it'll give me a good excuse to read a number of them, and I'll talk about the prize in general. So this is a book prize that I've followed in past years as well, because they've awarded some really good authors like Max Porter and Joshua Ferris and Keiu Chingonyi, and so I found some really good books through them, and this is actually the 15th anniversary of the Dylan Thomas Prize, which is run in association with Swansea University, and they award the winner £30,000, and it's open to any writer age 39 years or younger, because it's named for the poet Dylan Thomas, who died when he was 39 years old. So that's why they set that sort of age limit. And the parameters of the prize is to award international literary excellence. So it's quite open. So that's why it's open to writers of different genres. So the 12 books that are listed for this year's prize, they have 7 novels, 2 books of short stories, and 3 poetry collections. And the shortlist for the prize is going to be announced on April 7th and the winner on May 14th. So I have a good few months to read along with some of these books and find out what I make of them. And so I'm going to talk through each of the books and just give a little information about them and which ones I'm most interested in reading. The first books I'm going to talk about are the 3 poetry collections, because actually out of all these 12 books, the only 2 books I've read in their entirety are 2 of the poetry collections, which are sort of surprising because I mainly read fiction. But I've started a few of the other books in the past, but haven't finished them, and I'm going to talk about the reasons for that in a minute. But the first poetry collection I'll talk about is Surge by J. Bernard, which was absolutely one of my favorite books that I read last year. It's just an extraordinary collection which looks at the history of the New Crossfires in London in 1981, I think it was, which was a tragic event where a number of black teenagers died, and the events around that fire were very suspicious, and it resulted in a number of protests in London and a lot of discussions about race in the UK, and so it inhabits the different personalities of a number of people involved in that, as well as looking at the modern landscape of the UK and race relations in England currently. So I think this is just a wonderful collection. It was up for the Ford Prize and also listed for the Costa Book Award, as the sticker on here. So it's been up for multiple awards. So I think it's just such a wonderful collection. Then there is Flèche by Mary Jean Chan. This was actually the winner of the Costa Book Awards this year in the poetry category. And this is an excellent collection that I got so emotionally involved in this because it describes mainly a mother-daughter relationship, and so it follows the author from childhood to adulthood and her different relationships with her mother over the time as the daughter grows into a queer woman and she moves to the West and inhabits largely white spaces as opposed to Asian spaces. So there's a lot in it about sexuality and race, but also about family and just love in general, and relationships, and it's such a wonderful collection. I really enjoyed this. And then there is the collection by Stephen Sexton called If All the World and Love Were Young. And I saw the author read from this when I went to the Ford Prizes a few months ago, which is a poetry prize. And this actually won the best first collection at the Ford Prizes a few months ago, and yeah, the writing is so evocative and really like harkens back to my childhood, because there's a lot in this about Super Mario Brothers, and so there's a few poems that are called like Yoshi's Island and stuff, and I was somebody that grew up playing a lot of Super Mario Brothers, but it also explores a lot of different emotional relationships, because the poet's mother died, and so it explores that relationship with her, but yeah, sort of through the lens of video games, which is so original and interesting way of looking at that. So I'm really excited to finally get to reading this poetry collection. And then a couple of the novels are by actual poets, but these are their first novels, and I always think it's really interesting when poets make that leap over into fiction. So the first book is Black Car Burning by Helen Mort, and so this is a novel set in Sheffield, and is about two women who are in a relationship with each other, and an open relationship. So it explores the tensions and the issues involved with that, but also one of the women is a police officer, so it explores the landscape of that city, and yeah, I just think it sounds like a really interesting novel that I'm keen to read. And then there is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, which is a novel I started reading last year and just got distracted from, and yeah, just didn't go back to, which I felt really guilty about, and I've wanted to finish reading. So this, it's going to give me a good excuse to finally finish reading this novel with a beautiful, beautiful cover. And this is such an acclaimed novel. A lot of people know what it's about already. It's about the author writing about his relationship with his mother. There's a lot of books in here about mother-child relationships, it seems, and so it's him writing a letter to her and going into his personal history as well as his mother's history. Stubborn Archivist by Yara Rodrigues Fowler, and this is a novel about which sort of loosely follows the author's own experience of moving from Brazil to the UK, and traces the uneven experience of that. And I started reading this novel towards the beginning of last year, because it was one I was really interested in, but I just didn't get along with the style of the writing. It's been written in this very sort of casual style, where she's just sort of relating the events of her life, and it goes into different like emails and instant messages and stuff, and I just felt like it was too loose in the way it was written, and like it just wasn't like crafted enough. It just felt like it was just sort of somebody like sharing the inbox of their email, and which I don't know, I just didn't really get on with it, but a lot of other people have really enjoyed this novel, so I think it might be a case of just me. And another book on the list that I had that experience with is Exquisite Cadavers by Meena Kandasamy, and this is an author I've loved reading in the past. Like her novel When I Hit You, I think is so extraordinary and good, but I started reading this and just didn't really get along with the way she styled this novel. So it's sort of a book in two halves, where on one side she's showing she's writing a story, but then on the other side she's showing all of the things which inspired and went into writing that story, and it goes back and forth between these two perspectives to try to give a full picture, like complete account of why she's writing this fiction, and I found that too jostling, like the way it goes back and forth between those perspectives, and so I just wasn't really enjoying it. But like I said, a lot of other people have really enjoyed and admired this very short novel, but it just wasn't for me. But Inland by Téa Obreht is a novel I've been really wanting to get to reading. This was published last August, I think, and I kept meaning to read it and just haven't got around to it. So this is the author of The Tiger's Wife, which is a novel I enjoyed, but didn't think was like hugely memorable. But other people who have read The Tiger's Wife as well as this new novel say this is a much better novel. So I'm really looking forward to it. So it takes place in the late 1800s in Arizona and is about a frontierswoman who's awaiting the return of the men in her life. And she feels that there's a sort of beast stalking around her. So it's sort of about ghosts and mythology and adventure, and I'm just really excited to read it. Then there is The Far Field by Madhuri Vijay, and this is another novel that I've been really wanting to get to because it actually won the JCB Prize for Literature, which is an Indian Book Award. So this is a novel about a young woman in Bangalore whose mother dies, and another book about a mother-child relationship. But after her mother's death, she wants to reconnect with a childhood friend, so sets out on a journey to try to find that childhood friend, and in the process of doing that encounters a lot of the political difficulties of the landscapes that she passes through. So yeah, I'm really excited to read this novel. Virtuoso by Yelena Moskovich. This is a novel set in Prague in the 1980s and is about a childhood friendship between two girls, and then it leaps forward in time to look at their reconnection with each other in adulthood. So it's another novel that also explores that relationship. And but this sort of looks at communism in Czechoslovakia in that time, in the process of it becoming the Czech Republic. But it's meant to have a very dreamlike quality to it. It's described as fiction likened to the films of David Lynch, so I'm very curious about that. And the final two books on the list are the two books of short stories, which are both ones that I've been really wanting to get to. So the first is Things We Say in the Dark by Kirsty Logan, which is an author I've read in the past and really enjoyed. I've read her books The Rental Heart and A Portable Shelter, both really excellent, and often her writing has a sort of fairy tale type quality to it, like dark fairy tales, which is totally my thing. And but these stories I think are also meant to be sort of like ghost stories. So very excited to get to this. And then there's the collection Lot by Bryan Washington. And these are all short stories set around the city of Houston and explore a number of different characters and lives. But a number of them are Black and Latino. So it looks at the lives of a number of different people in that city. So those are the 12 books. Let me know what ones you're interested in reading. If you've read any of these, what are your thoughts about them? And we can chat about it in the comments below. But yeah, over the next few months, I'll be reading a number of these books and talking about them. So I hope you're doing well and reading good things. I'll speak to you again soon. Bye, everyone.